Head to the top of the seventh here on Mindset Matters. Mike, I have waited a year to say head to the top of the seventh in something. It's been so long, man.
Yeah, I hear you. It's good to hear you say that, and I'm sure it feels good to say it. Just glad to be here, and yes, so here we are together, top of the seventh.
Yeah.
All right.
Mindset Matters continues, and a mental health series presented by WellSpan Health. I'm Daryl Henry, Dr. Michael Diller on the other side of my screen, and together on your screens as you watch this, or listen to it, of course, on the radio version and the audio podcast. It's always there for you to go back to and for your listening pleasure, live or later. So, Mike, this is, as we get into the latter third of this series, hard to believe. But, you know, I kind of, with everything going on in the world now, I kind of try to look at things that we're doing in life, whether it's sports or work. And like we get through another week, we're hopefully one step closer, 1 week closer to being back to a little bit better situation worldwide. But anyway, it's hard to believe that we're already in the latter third of this series, and time flies even when it's difficult times. But I am particularly excited, and I could probably say this every week, but I think these next couple episodes will be two of my favorites. We have, and I've loved all of them, but we've kind of naturally, our conversation has gravitated kind of toward depression for the most part, kind of building off that through the first weeks. We're really going to focus on anxiety here these next couple of weeks, and it is its own beast. A lot of times it works together. You know, there's a lot of people, including myself, that suffer from both, and that is its own special kind of animal. But you know, there's a lot of, I mean, so many people in some way, whether it's one specific situation or something that, you know, kind of clinically you're dealing with that particular illness all the time. These next couple of episodes, I think there's a lot of people that could identify with this.
Yeah. No, I think it's something, you know, Daryl, you know, it's just something that even with the last, you know, you said something there, we're dealing with this kind of illness. And I know, you know, we talked about it a little bit before about kind of mental illness, mental health, those kinds of things. And we're really trying to get to a place, all of us are just trying to feel well, physically, emotionally, mentally. And so we're really talking about just kind of, when we talk about anxiety, you know, sometimes people will think, you know, if I have anxiety, then there is something, I'm ill, there is something wrong with me. And while sometimes in the language we use, we will say that, I look at really anxiety as something that falls across a continuum, and it affects all of us. So there are going to be times where anxiety presents us challenges, you know, where it really challenges our ability to be at our best kind of health, you know, to be well, to be mentally well, to have good mental health. And so that's really what we wanted to kind of just talk about today and tackle about that, put that right out there on the table, that all of us are going to, most people will say, yeah, I know what that's like. I've been anxious before. I felt a little nervous. And like I said before, it's really, you know, more about everyone experiences these types of emotions, you know, feeling sad, feeling worried. But sometimes they fall across this continuum to the point where it starts to really interfere with their everyday functioning. It really starts to get in the way of how frequently they're feeling it, how intensely they're feeling it, and how long it lasts. So when you look at those things, you know, that's where, you know, anxiety can become a challenge. It can become disruptive. And so that's really what we want to kind of look at. So we really want everyone to be in their best space and place, good, you know, good mental health, feeling good about everything that they, you know, their total whole person well-being, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, all of the above.
Yeah. You know, on this show, obviously I've kept very few secrets. So I will happily share, you know, kind of what my strategy is for dealing with that. I do take, you know, a daily medication. I have a second one that's stronger on days that I might really need it. And that's okay if it's prescribed safely by your physician. Go through your physician. Don't try anything on your own. But then just as big and maybe even bigger part of that is my therapy sessions at WellSpan and working with Katie on ways to process things. And, a lot of anxiety comes from, for me, worrying about stuff that hasn't even happened yet. Catastrophizing is what she called it, automatically going to the worst case scenario. So we do a lot of journaling, like what is an irrational thought, and then replacing it with what is the rational version of that scenario. But just to kind of throw out some symptoms that when I think of anxiety, some things that I've felt, just so that, our listeners and viewers know that they're not alone in this. If they're feeling this, it can be paralyzing to your productivity. Let's say that, you're anxious about something at work, or maybe not even at work, but it can interfere with your productivity in daily life to the point where you get so overwhelmed, you almost just shut down and you don't know what to do. When you get in those kind of situations, you almost feel like you're trapped in your own head, kind of tormented and buried by your own worrisome thoughts. And it's really tough to get out of that. I think of like social situations where some of the time I'm totally fine and confident, but there's days where like you just don't feel like yourself, and maybe you're trying to match somebody else in conversation and, match their energy. But in the back of your head, most of your thoughts are like, am I, standing the right way or saying the right thing or coming across the right way? That can be, a type of social anxiety. And there's so many, you can feel the symptoms of, sort of nausea and worry. I tend to get, I tend to get really sensory overloaded. And, my house, for instance, I live with my wife and 3 kids who I love more than anything, but my kids are so high energy. Yeah. And during this pandemic, we've been home more than ever, and it's just like constant stimulation, whether it's, from the TV over here, a computer over here, an iPad over here. They're all, asking for something at the same time. And I just get to the point where like, I almost just shut down. So I get really like sensory overwhelmed. Noises make me jump more than I should. They're kind of louder in my own head than they should be. And I crave this like calm. I heard somebody one time say that deals with anxiety, that they wish they could be like this carefree hippie and not have a care in the world. But with anxiety, you often care too much about everything. And then with depression, you can end up not caring at all about things. So yeah. It's crazy the way they go together. But Mike, if you were to ask me to describe what anxiety is like, a little 2 or 3 minute capsule, those are kind of the symptoms that come to my mind. And the reason that I share that right off the bat is, we might have listeners and viewers that feel those exact same things and, maybe didn't know how to put it into words or something,
Yeah, I think that, yeah. And Daryl, I think that's important to put that out there because, the other thing is too, you're actually putting words to those types of feelings and experiences. And sometimes that is difficult. Sometimes people really don't understand kind of what is really happening. I remember when we were talking earlier in another episode about the depression, when that first kind of set in with you, you're like, I'm not even sure what I'm dealing with. You felt like I just don't feel good. And so sometimes it's those physical symptoms that people are experiencing, and anxiety can be that way too, because sometimes people are, feeling like they have these headaches, they feel muscle tightness, neck pain, shoulder pain, stomach is kind of upset. Sometimes anxiety gets to the point where people are just feeling like, I feel more hungry. I think I just need to eat. Sometimes we call that emotional eating, kind of that mood and food relationship where, people are, they turn to food, for example, when they start to get really kind of heightened in terms of their anxiety and their stress levels. It can affect all kinds of different things. It can affect my sleep. It can affect my ability to concentrate. It can affect my ability to kind of, multitask, which is not necessarily something that humans are really geared to do, even though we do it all the time. But we're really not, the neuropsychologists would say, and the neurologists, that we're not able truly to be able to do that effectively as we would normally want to do. Anxiety kind of complicates all of that. You had mentioned something, sometimes that feeling like it's like kind of just too much, the kind of the worry thoughts or these the stimuli that's coming in, and we just sometimes just want to create space. Can I just create some? I just need some space. I just need some time to just be able to not have all of this happening at one point in time. And so sometimes people will feel that things are just coming at them, and that creates even more stress. And physical kind of arousal. Sometimes, our heart rate goes up, our breathing starts to go a little bit higher, the muscles tighten. It's the anxiety and stress response is very primitive. It's been there. It actually is protective. It's been there for years and centuries. We need this. So it's that arousal alarm system that goes off. If I step out into the street and I see a bus coming, I want that arousal system to work, and it's going to need to kick into gear. Everything that I just mentioned there needs to kick into gear, and I need to respond. So we hear this fight or flight or sometimes freeze response. Hopefully I'm fleeing to get out of the way of that bus. Otherwise we're going to have an issue. So I need that to work. That's built to be protective. However, there are times in our lives where that alarm goes off, and it's not necessarily a threat to our safety, to our well-being, but we perceive it. We interpret it as, oh my gosh, this is something that's, so it's how we think about things, how we interpret the events, how we perceive the events, that then add a layer that creates some of that alarm system to go off, and then goes off again and goes off again. Sometimes I refer to them as almost like false alarms. So the work that you and Katie are doing is huge. So you mentioned a couple things, medication being one, and that absolutely can be a part of kind of the treatment of anxiety. It is absolutely that. You also mentioned something that's very important, to make sure that you're working with a physician, your doctor, or prescribing practitioner that is doing that in a closely monitored way. But the other piece that you and Katie are doing on the counseling side is what sometimes is referred to as that kind of cognitive behavioral therapy. Sometimes people said, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and the listeners were like, oh gosh, we're going into the technical language here. but that cognitive, hang with me. That work that you're doing is really that self-talk, that mindset matters that we've been talking about. It's really about how do we talk to ourselves, and that what if this happens? What if this happens? We can what if ourselves right into a frenzy of anxiety and nervousness and stress. And here's the thing about this. That can happen to any one of us, because it's happened to me on any given day. I'll start what ifing, and next thing I know, whoa, if I don't find a way to kind of break that cycle, that alarm system is just going to keep going. And that arousal and all of those things I just talked about, the breathing, the tensing of the muscles, the heart rate going up. Sometimes people start to break into a sweat, the headaches, all of those kinds of things can happen to any one of us. And so the work there that you and Katie are doing, and others on the counseling side, that cognitive behavioral therapy is really, really important, been shown to be very effective in being able to work through anxiety and depression. Sometimes even head-to-head comparison with medication, and if you put medication and the cognitive behavioral therapy head-to-head, the cognitive behavioral therapy at times will outdo medication alone. Together, you tend to see, if you're going to, sometimes people will or will not necessarily need the medication, but that therapy side of things can be huge, because you're changing kind of the way that you're interpreting things in the world, and then also doing something about it. Like when you're talking about identifying list all the thoughts, the irrational thoughts, then that's kind of talk a little bit about what some of the rational thoughts that might be able to kind of go up against those. And then it gives you a window to kind of break that kind of anxiety cycle. That alarm system is in the back of our brain. It's this little kind of amygdala part of the brain. It looks a little almond shaped. It's been there forever. All of us have it. That's the alarm system. The idea is we're trying to break that or get into that, stop that false alarm, kind of like let's reset the alarm and get to this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is, that's the part of the brain. I know that I'll be short on the technical stuff, but up here is where it gives us our best chance to be able to kind of let the wheels kind of start turning again, that we can think straight, we can think clearly. This is where our forethought, our planning, our ability to stop and think, that's where we want to be. And that's where the work that you're doing with Katie is an invitation, an opportunity to get there, to get to this part of the brain. And that's where we want to be. And we're also then kind of calming the false alarms.